The quantum Zeno effect. Stop staring at the pot, it will never boil. You've heard it, right? Just some folksy wisdom to teach you patience. Except it's literally true. On a quantum level, the very act of observing a system prevents it from changing. This isn't philosophy, it's the quantum Zeno effect, and it's one of the most profoundly weird truths of our universe. Imagine an unstable radioactive atom. Left to its own devices, it has a certain probability of decaying over a period of time. It's a game of chance. But what if you could watch it? What if you could continuously check every femtosecond, hey, have you decayed yet? How about now? Now. Every time you measure it, you are forcing the quantum system to collapse into a definite state, either decayed or not decayed. If you measure it and find it hasn't decayed, you've effectively reset the clock on its decay probability. The atom's quantum wave function, which was evolving towards decay, gets snapped back to its initial undecayed state. If you perform these measurements rapidly and continuously enough, you can essentially freeze the atom in place, preventing it from ever decaying. It's like pausing a video game by constantly hitting the menu button. The universe wants to move on, to let the atom fulfill its probabilistic destiny, but your incessant observation holds it hostage. This isn't just a theoretical party trick. Scientists have demonstrated this in labs, holding quantum systems in a state of suspended animation. It has massive implications for quantum computing, where maintaining a stable quantum state is the holy grail. By carefully watching qubits, we can protect them from decoherence, the process where they lose their quantum properties. So the next time you feel like you're being watched, consider this. Maybe you are, and that's the only thing holding you together. The universe isn't just stranger than you imagine, it's stranger than you can imagine. And your gaze has the power to stop time itself. The Mpemba effect. Get a glass of hot water and a glass of cold water. Put them both in the freezer. Which one freezes first? Logic and every science class you've ever taken screams the cold water, obviously. It has less thermal energy to lose, a shorter journey to the freezing point. And you would be wrong, sometimes. Under certain not fully understood conditions, the hot water will beat the cold water to the punch. This is the Mpemba effect, a piece of scientific heresy that has been observed and documented since Aristotle, but is still kicking up arguments in physics departments. It was named after a Tanzanian schoolboy, Erasto Mpemba, who in the 1960s noticed his hot ice cream mix froze faster than the cold mix. His teacher dismissed it as impossible, but a visiting physicist took him seriously, and the phenomenon was confirmed. So what the hell is going on? There isn't one simple answer, which is what makes it so fascinating. Several theories are jostling for position. One idea is evaporation. The hot water loses more mass through evaporation, so there's simply less water to freeze. Another contender is dissolved gases. Hot water holds less dissolved gas than cold water, and these gases can slightly alter the freezing point. Then there's the more complex stuff involving convection and supercooling. In the hot water, strong convection currents are set up as the warmer, less dense water rises and the cooler water sinks. This more efficient heat transfer could speed up the cooling process. Furthermore, cold water is often more likely to supercool, to drop below its freezing point without actually turning into a solid. The impurities and dissolved gases that act as nucleation sites for ice crystals might be distributed differently. The hot water, having been heated, might have a different memory of these sites, allowing ice to form more readily at 0 degrees C. It's a perfect storm of thermodynamics where the seemingly simple act of freezing water turns into a complex puzzle involving mass loss, gas content, convection, and the subtle history of the water itself. It's a reminder that even the most mundane phenomena can hide deep and counterintuitive physics. The placebo effect's evil twin, the nocebo effect. You know the placebo effect. You take a sugar pill, believe it's a powerful drug, and your headache miraculously vanishes. Your mind's belief translates into a real physiological outcome. It's the power of positive thinking, weaponized. But every hero has a dark reflection, and for the placebo, it's the nocebo effect. This is the sinister power of negative expectation. If a doctor tells you a harmless injection might cause a rash, your brain can conjure that rash into existence. It's not just in your head, it's on your skin. The nocebo effect is the tangible, physical manifestation of pessimism, fear, and negative belief. Studies on this are ethically tricky. You can't just tell people a sugar pill is poison, but the evidence is overwhelming. People in clinical trials who are warned about potential side effects of a new drug are significantly more likely to report those exact side effects, even when they are in the placebo group. It's not just about reporting bias. They experience genuine nausea, pain, and dizziness, all generated by their own minds. Think about voodoo curses, where a person is told they are doomed and then withers away. That's the nocebo effect in its most extreme, culturally mediated form. How does it work? It's a cocktail of anxiety and conditioning. Negative expectations trigger the release of stress hormones like cortisol and cholecystokinin, which can modulate pain pathways and create physical symptoms. Your brain, anticipating a negative outcome, essentially preemptively creates it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy written into your nervous system. This has profound implications for medicine. The way a doctor frames a diagnosis or discusses side effects can literally make a patient sicker. The words, "this might sting a little," can actually amplify the pain of a needle. The nocebo effect is a chilling reminder that our minds aren't just passive observers of our bodies, they are active, and sometimes malevolent. Architects of our physical reality. Your belief can heal you, but it can also poison you from the inside out. The Allais effect. Imagine you're watching a total solar eclipse. The sky goes dark, the temperature drops, the birds go silent. It's an eerie, primal experience. But while you're looking up, something even weirder might be happening right under your feet. In 1954, a French economist and physicist named Maurice Allais was experimenting with a Foucault pendulum, a device that demonstrates the Earth's rotation. During a solar eclipse, he noticed his pendulum started to behave erratically. Its plane of oscillation began to shift in a way that defied the known laws of physics. It was as if, for a few minutes, the Earth's rotation had a seizure. This is the Allais effect. It's the claim that during a solar eclipse, the behavior of pendulums, gravimeters, and other sensitive instruments goes haywire. The effect is controversial, maddeningly difficult to replicate, and has no accepted scientific explanation. Allais himself won a Nobel Prize in economics, not physics, which adds another layer of intrigue. Mainstream science has mostly dismissed the effect as a result of experimental error, subtle changes in temperature, pressure, or ground tilt caused by the eclipse's shadow passing over. These are plausible, but they don't seem to fully account for the magnitude of the anomalies reported in some experiments. The more exotic theories are where things get really fun. Is it a gravitational anomaly? Does the moon, sun, and Earth aligning create some kind of gravitational lensing or shielding effect that we don't understand? Does it hint at a flaw in Einstein's theory of general relativity? Some have even proposed that the effect is evidence of a fifth force of nature, or a consequence of some unknown aspect of the ether or dark matter. The scientific community remains deeply skeptical, and for good reason. The data is inconsistent. Some eclipses produce an effect, others don't. But the mystery persists. It's a ghost in the machine of celestial mechanics, a tantalizing anomaly that suggests the clockwork of the cosmos might have a few loose screws, only visible when the lights go out. The Benjamin Franklin effect. You want someone to like you? Don't do them a favor. Ask them to do you one. This piece of backward social engineering is known as the Benjamin Franklin effect, and it's a masterclass in manipulating cognitive dissonance. The story goes that Franklin had a rival legislator who disliked him. Instead of trying to win him over with flattery or favors, Franklin asked to borrow a rare and valuable book from the man's library. The rival, surprised but flattered, obliged. When Franklin returned it a week later with a thank you note, the man's entire demeanor had changed. They became lifelong friends. Why does this work? It's all about the brain's desperate need for a coherent narrative. We are wired to believe that our actions align with our beliefs. "I am a person who helps John" is an action. If your pre-existing belief is "I dislike John," you now have a conflict, a state of cognitive dissonance. Your brain scrambles to resolve this uncomfortable mental static. It has two choices. Either admit that its action was inconsistent and meaningless, "I helped someone I hate for no reason," or the much easier path, change the belief. "You know what?" your brain concludes. "I don't actually dislike John. In fact, he's a pretty decent guy. That's why I did him that favor." The act of kindness forces a reevaluation of the person you were kind to. You justify your action by retroactively deciding you like them. It's a psychological backdoor into someone's affections. The bigger the favor, the more powerful the effect, because the brain has to work harder to justify the effort. This isn't just a historical anecdote. It's been repeatedly confirmed in psychological experiments. It's a powerful tool in negotiation, relationship building, and even sales. By asking for a small commitment, you're not just getting help. You're forcing the other person's brain to build a narrative in which you are worthy of that help. It's a subtle, brilliant, and slightly devious way of hacking human psychology. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. You learn a new word, and suddenly you see it everywhere. You buy a new car, and now every other car on the road is the same model. Is the universe conspiring to show you these things? Are you a wizard? No, you're just experiencing the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or as it's more formally known, frequency illusion. It's a two-part cognitive glitch that makes novel information feel suddenly ubiquitous. Part 1 is selective attention. Your brain is a bouncer at the nightclub of your consciousness. It's constantly filtering out a tidal wave of sensory information to prevent you from going insane. Most of the words you read, cars you see, and sounds you hear are denied entry. But when you encounter something new and significant, a cool word, a diagnosis, a new hobby, your brain flags it. This is important now, it says. Put this on the VIP list. Your selective attention filter is now primed to spot that specific thing. It was always there, you just never had a reason to notice it before. Part 2 is confirmation bias. This is your brain's tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of its existing beliefs. Once your selective attention starts pointing out that new word or car, your confirmation bias kicks in and says, "See, I knew it. This thing really is everywhere." Each new sighting reinforces the belief that the frequency has genuinely increased, creating a feedback loop of perceived significance. You feel like you've uncovered a pattern in the universe, but you've actually just uncovered a pattern in your own attention. It's not the world that has changed, it's your filter for seeing the world. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon is a powerful reminder that your perception of reality isn't a perfect photograph. It's a heavily edited, curated, and biased highlight reel directed by your own brain. The Dunning-Kruger effect. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks in broad daylight with no mask. When the police showed him the security camera footage, he was genuinely shocked. "But I wore the juice," he muttered. He believed that rubbing lemon juice on his face would make him invisible to cameras, a misunderstanding of its properties as invisible ink. This spectacular failure of insight led 2 psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, to investigate a peculiar cognitive bias, the Dunning-Kruger effect. In short, it's the curse of the incompetent. The less you know about something, the less you're able to recognize your own lack of knowledge. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a double whammy of ignorance. Not only are unskilled individuals incompetent, but their incompetence robs them of the very metacognitive ability to realize how incompetent they are. A truly terrible chess player doesn't just lose games. They often lack the strategic understanding to even see why they lost. They might blame bad luck or assume their opponent cheated because they are fundamentally incapable of perceiving the vast gap between their skills and their opponents. Their knowledge is a tiny island in a vast ocean of ignorance, but from their perspective on the island, all they can see is land. Conversely, the effect also suggests that experts tend to underestimate their own ability. Highly competent people are acutely aware of the nuances and complexities of their field. They know how much they don't know. They also tend to assume that tasks which are easy for them are also easy for others. This leads to a situation where the most ignorant are brimming with unearned confidence, while the most knowledgeable are plagued by self-doubt. It explains so much about the world: the armchair general who thinks they can solve a war in an afternoon, the internet commenter who has a simple solution to climate change. They aren't just ignorant, they are ignorant of their own ignorance. The first step to wisdom isn't acquiring knowledge, but acquiring the humility to recognize how little you have. The Hawthorne effect. You want to measure how productive your employees are. So, you install cameras, bring in researchers with clipboards, and announce you're conducting a study to improve efficiency. And lo and behold, productivity skyrockets. You've discovered a revolutionary new management technique. Except you haven't. A few weeks later, when the study is over and the researchers are gone, productivity slumps right back to where it was. You've just become a victim of the Hawthorne effect, the tendency for people to change their behavior simply because they know they are being watched. The effect gets its name from a series of experiments conducted at the Hawthorne Works factory in Illinois in the 1920s and 30s. Researchers tinkered with all sorts of variables: lighting levels, break times, payment structures. They found that almost any change they made, whether it was increasing the lighting or decreasing it, led to an increase in productivity. The workers weren't responding to the specific changes in their environment. They were responding to the attention itself. The feeling of being special, of being part of an important experiment, and the increased social cohesion of the observed group was enough to motivate them to work harder. The Hawthorne effect is a massive headache for social scientists and researchers. How can you study people's natural behavior if the very act of studying them makes their behavior unnatural? It's a kind of social uncertainty principle. It reveals that we are not just cogs in a machine. Our performance isn't a simple output of inputs like pay and lighting. It's deeply intertwined with our psychology, our social needs, and our desire for recognition. When you're being observed, you're not just a worker. You're a performer on a stage. You put on your best self costume. This is why reality TV is never truly real, and why your boss gets a very different version of you than your friends do. We are all constantly adjusting our performance based on who we think is in the audience. The Libet experiment and free will. Do you decide to lift your finger? Or does your brain decide and then tell you about it afterwards? This is the terrifying question at the heart of the Libet experiment, a famous and controversial neuroscience study from the 1980s that threw a bomb into the concept of free will. Benjamin Libet hooked participants up to an EEG to measure their brain activity and an EMG to detect muscle movement. He then asked them to do something simple: flex their wrist whenever they felt the urge. The only other instruction was to note the precise time on a special clock when they first became consciously aware of the intention to act. The results were chilling. Libet discovered a buildup of neural activity in the brain, a readiness potential, that began about half a second before the person reported having the conscious will to move. Let that sink in. Your brain has already started the process of making the movement long before you are aware of having decided to make it. The conscious intention, the feeling of "I will now flex my wrist," appears as a late-coming afterthought. It's as if your brain is the puppet master and your conscious self is the puppet, deluded into thinking it's pulling its own strings. The implications are staggering. If our actions are initiated by unconscious neural processes before we are aware of them, is our sense of free will just an illusion? A post hoc rationalization our brain feeds us to maintain a sense of agency? The experiment has been fiercely debated for decades. Critics argue that the readiness potential might not be a decision to act, but rather a general neural stirring, a rising tide of probabilistic activity that makes a subsequent decision more likely. Others question the accuracy of reporting the moment of conscious intention, but the core finding has been replicated and refined. Some modern experiments using fMRI can predict a person's decision to press a button with their left or right hand up to 10 seconds before they are consciously aware of having made the choice. The Libet experiment doesn't kill free will entirely. Libet himself suggested we might have free won't, the power to veto the action in the last few milliseconds, but it certainly puts it on life support. The uncanny valley. You see a robot. It's made of metal and plastic with visible joints and a boxy head. You find it charming, maybe even cute. Now you see a different robot. This one is designed to look perfectly human. It has synthetic skin, realistic hair, and blinking eyes. But something is wrong. The smile doesn't quite reach the eyes. The movements are a fraction too smooth or a fraction too jerky. It looks almost human, but not quite. And the feeling it evokes isn't charm. It's a deep, gut-level revulsion. You have just fallen into the uncanny valley. Coined by roboticist Masahiro Mori, the uncanny valley is a hypothesis in aesthetics. As an object's appearance becomes more and more human-like, our emotional response to it becomes increasingly positive, until a point is reached where it is almost human. At this point, our positive feelings plummet into a chasm of strangeness and disgust. Then, if the object's human likeness continues to improve and becomes indistinguishable from a real human, our emotional response climbs back up to the positive side. That dip, that valley of revulsion for the almost human, is the uncanny valley. It's why CGI characters that are nearly realistic but slightly off are so much creepier than cartoon characters. It's why a mannequin in a dark room is terrifying, but a teddy bear isn't. Why does this happen? The leading theory taps into deep-seated evolutionary instincts. Our brains are exquisitely tuned to detect other humans, and more importantly, to detect what's wrong with other humans. An entity that looks human but moves or emotes incorrectly could be a sign of disease, a genetic defect, or even death, a corpse. That feeling of revulsion is a defense mechanism, a primal alarm bell screaming, "Stay away! Something is not right here. This could be a threat to my survival or my reproductive fitness." Other theories suggest it's about cognitive dissonance, the conflict between the appearance of being human and the knowledge that it is not, or a violation of our expectations of how humans should look and behave. Whatever the cause, the uncanny valley is a powerful barrier in robotics and animation, a psychological moat that separates the human from the almost human, and a reminder that our brains have a built-in creepiness detector that is very hard to fool.